Hello class, this is your teacher Mr. McDougall with your next tutorial in Photoshop. We are back at classwork again. We're going to go over content aware is going to be the theme of this lesson. So we're talking about how Photoshop uses the generative AI and the content aware to remove objects from photos and kind of fill in the background using its AI properties. So as always, download today's exercise files and open them all up in Photoshop. A lot of files to work with today, but it's a very simple trick, the one that we're doing, so you'll have lots of opportunities to practice the different versions. We're going to do the different versions that Adobe Photoshop has for its AI and content aware. So the first thing it can do is it can extend photos if necessary. So take a moment to make sure all of your exercise files are open and get to this point. So let's say for this photo, for example, I'm going to zoom out. This is Content Aware 01. This is a nice photo. It would be good for a post or framing. However, maybe I want to use it for a website banner, and those are usually long and stretched out. So for a website banner, it would be more coming this direction. So what we can do is use our crop tool. If I come over to the crop tool, which you should see over here. If you don't see it, make sure it might be in the group with the slice tool or one of the other tools that you used before. Go to the crop tool. And let's say I want to extend this photo for a website banner. Let's say I want to stretch it out maybe over there. And then it would be good for the top of a website or a YouTube banner or something like that. So by default, if you just hit OK, it just does that. It just extends it with no data whatsoever. However, if I use the crop tool and extend it, I can come out here. And if I come up here to where it says fill with, so by default it's on the transparent background, or we can do generative expand or content aware fill. Let's do content aware fill and then click the checkbox. So it'll do a 1, 2, 3, think about it, and now it's magically just added more to it. So this is possible depending on the image itself. So I started with this first example so you can see this one was pretty easy. It was just a straight line of the ocean, the sand, and the sky. So it was pretty easy for the content aware to figure out what data is missing and just add to it. So it created it out of nothing. Let's go to content aware 02 and we'll try the same thing. So let's go to this one. This one's a different example where you can see the background is a little bit more complicated. On this one, let's extend it on both sides. Let's drag it out this way, and we'll drag it out this way too. So let's say I need this to extend for my website banner. Let's go back up to Content Aware Fill again, which it should already be on. And now let's click the check. So you'll see, again, it's using the data that was already there to figure out and generate what it thinks is missing. So up here seems simple enough. This was pretty bare and plain, so that was easy. You can see this part, it kind of got a little bit confused. It kind of copied this piece and move over. If you look at the left side, it's all kinds of janky over here. It makes it really hard when it comes into these complicated patterns. This first one, as I mentioned, was easy. It was just sand and water, easy to replicate. This one, not so much. When it has these complicated patterns, it doesn't always turn out so well. So with all of these, you'll just have to play around on creating the fill to try and make it look clean. And it's going to be a little bit more challenging, some more challenging than others. And if you're doing this on photos of your own, it just depends on how the photo looks. So the exercise files are just for you to practice the tools and understand how they work whenever you're in this actual situation. Let's go to Content Aware 03. So for this one, we're going to use a couple of new tools to start removing people or objects from photos. So in order to do non-destructive editing, we need to duplicate our background layer to make sure we don't cause any permanent damage. So for the rest of these exercise files, I want you to duplicate the background layer. So first thing, let's click on the background, do Command or Control J to duplicate it. Now we have layer 1, so we can do the editing on this layer. So we're going to select this person and take them out of the photo. Typically we use our quick select tool. However, we can also use another tool for a faster selection called the lasso tool. And that allows us to do techniques like this with the generative fill, where we're not going to cut out the person. We want to get them cut out so they can be removed and the AI can determine what's in the background and what to replace it with. So for that, we're going to come over here to the lasso tool which is in this selection brush group. So if you come over to the selection brush group, click and hold, you'll see the lasso tool right here. Lasso is like a rope. So if you click on it, now you can use your mouse to freely draw. So click and hold your mouse and don't let go of your mouse. Now you're just drawing a line. So think of it like you have a pen or pencil and you're drawing this long consistent line, and we're going to do a pretty rough selection around the entire subject, just like this. So I didn't have to make a clean selection like we do with the quick select tool because I'm not trying to cut him out exactly. This time I actually want the background as part of the selection because the AI is going to use the background to determine how to fill it in. So with this rough selection, now we're going to go up to Edit and then Fill. And then right here where it says Content, it's going to ask us what we want to fill it with. So click Content Aware and then click OK. So it does just like that. And now we can deselect with Control D to deselect the whole thing. And now you can see that the person has been filled. You can see there's a little bit of leftover right here. There's a little bit of blur. But if you were just looking at this before realizing there was a person in it, you may not be able to tell. So this is before and after. Again, just removing the person just like that. As simple as that. Let's do it again with this one. For this one, we can use a similar tool to the lasso tool. If you're finding the lasso tool to be difficult with your mouse, if you're trying to draw and just for some reason with your hand you can't get it like that, it starts to become troublesome, we can use its cousin, the polygonal lasso tool or the polygonal lasso tool right here. So with this one instead of having to click and hold, you just click and make little points and it does connecting the dots. So if I click, so I'm not holding my mouse, I'm just single clicking. And you can see it's doing this connect the dots thing. So you might find this one to be easier if you do it this way. So I'm going to go around, pretty rough selection, not doing too close. But think of it like when you're tracing your hand for when you're drawing a turkey, kind of like that. Like it's a pretty rough selection all the way around the outside. And then you come back and click it here to close it out. If you click like that, let me show you something that might happen. Sometimes you might try to click and it may not close the gap. Like you try to click over here and it's just not working and you're like, I'm trying to click on it. If that ever is the case, just wherever you are, just double click. If I double click right there, it will automatically close the gap for me. So that's perfect. One thing I forgot to do before we started is duplicate this layer. As I mentioned, all these practice files, we're going to duplicate the layer. Control J. There we go. Now let's go back and make our selection again. Again, if you can use either the lasso tool or the polygonal lasso tool if you're finding the lasso tool to be a little bit too difficult. This one is more connect the dots. Perfect. Now we're going to do the same thing. A shortcut that they added in Photoshop as well is to get to the same feature. Instead of going to edit and then fill for content aware, you can actually go right here as well. This little toolbar that's at the bottom. See this little bucket? That's the fill option. You can click on it and then click content aware fill as well. So it's a slightly shorter option to get to that same menu. Or go to edit and fill just like we did in the previous example. Click OK. Bada bing, bada boom. They're all gone. Again, a little bit more difficult. It was slightly easier in this one because it was just bare grass, kind of like the sand. It's easy to copy and paste that. But when you have patterns like this brick or something, it can become a little challenging. So if you're looking at this, you already know that it's been Photoshopped. But if you're looking at it for the first time, you might not realize it. All right, let's go to this one where it's going to get a little bit more complicated. Let's select this guy out. So I'm going to duplicate my layer. First thing, Control J. Now use either of the two lasso tools to select this guy. Use the polygon or the regular lasso tool. It doesn't matter. I'll switch back to the lasso. Let's draw our selection around this guy. Pretty rough selection. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're not going too far away from him. We're just kind of going around him like that. There we go. Perfect. So another option, as you just saw in this one, it could be a little sloppy sometimes. Another option to make it better is to use the generative AI. So for this one, if I do what we just did, if I go to Edit, Fill, Content Aware, click OK, it does this where you can see that, again, it's a little weird. You can see the sidewalk's a little crooked. This part doesn't line up. It's not looking that good. I'm going to Control Z to undo. One thing we can do now that is pretty new to the Photoshop interface is the generative fill, where you can type in what you want it to do and see how it works. So for this one, I want it to remove person. So just type in remove person and then hit generate and just give it a second as it finds out and see how that works. So it does it fairly quickly as it looks through the internet and creates its AI generation. So we'll see how it works with the background and removing this person. So as you can see, that looks a lot cleaner. The generative fill, the sidewalk was all mismatched. A lot of it didn't line up. In the generative AI one, it creates this mask right here. And you can see how much better of a job it did than the content aware. It looks almost perfect when it replaced the person. Excellent. Let's do the same thing with these bicycles on 06 and 07. You can see the difference in the generative fill versus the content aware. If I try to select out this bicycle and I do the content aware fill, it looks okay, but you can see the door looks a little weird. So let's not do that. Let me duplicate my background first. Let's select it and do the generative AI fill using the same one technique we just did in the previous lesson, or the previous example right here, generative fill, and put remove bicycle. And let's see how that works. You can see it creates it on its own layer right here. So it's not doing any kind of destructive editing to our copy either. It creates its own little layer mask. And you can see it looks a lot better. You can tell that it's Photoshop, but it's very hard to tell. You can see even the lines, even those complicated brick patterns, the generative AI did a really good job at removing it. Do the same thing to remove this bicycle. I'll let you do that one as well. Select it. Don't forget to duplicate your background. Select it and then use the generative AI fill and type in remove bicycle to get rid of it and make it look very clean. Once you do that, let's move on to this one. So pause the video, do that with the bicycle example, and then come back to this one. For this one, we're going to use content aware again with a new tool. So we're going to do the same thing we've been doing, but with a different tool to remove blemishes and imperfections. So we're going to help clean up this girl's skin where you can see she's obviously breaking out with acne, and we're going to do her a favor and clear it up for her. So let's take our background layer and duplicate it, Control J. Now instead of having to draw, so what you could do is draw little things like this around the lasso tool and then type in or use content aware fill, blah, blah, blah. But if you have little spots like that, it's actually easier to come over here to use this tool called the spot healing brush. If I click on this one, it looks like a little band-aid. You can click on it. It's grouped in with these other band-aid or healing tools. We want this one called the spot healing brush tool. So what that does, we can zoom in. And this is just like another brush tool where you can use the bracket keys as your shortcut to change the size. We can also adjust the hardness and the softness. I like to have this one kind of middle for hardness, not too hard, not too soft. And you can see what will happen. So let's click over here and click on the acne, just like that, and now it's gone. Click right there. What it does is it just removes the little spot. So if you have a tiny spot or a stain, instead of, it saves you the steps of having to draw a circle and type in or go to the fill. It just automatically does the content aware fill wherever you click. So I can click right there, and you can see her acne is going away. So this is better than Proactive or anything else that you might buy at the store. All we need is a good spot healing brush to get rid of all this acne. So let's make sure we clear up all these little spots. And now her skin is looking a lot clearer. So here's the before and here's the after. You can see how much of a difference this spot healing brush makes. So if you want to get rid of acne in your photos, this is the easiest way to do it. Similarly, let's go to the next one. Again, if you have spots, stains, or blemishes, this is a great way to get rid of it if it's clear. So same thing right here. Before we brush, let's duplicate our background. Control J, so the original is unchanged. And let's click right here. You can also click and drag like I just did. Instead of clicking and doing spots like that, because you can see if I just click the spot, it might look weird like that. So you can also click and drag. If I click, drag, and hold my mouse, it will select this whole area and get rid of it, just like that. Before and after. So the spot healing brush is really great for when you have little things like this. Let's go to the next one. Same thing right here. Duplicate our background. Control J. And now let's remove this spot. Let's kind of just brush around, holding my mouse right now to select this whole area. Going a little bit outside of it. And there you go, all gone. In this one, you do want to brush, you don't want to make a super clean selection on the line. You want to go a little bit outside of it so the content aware knows what background to fill it in with. All right, let's go to the next one, go to 11. And let's do it one more time for this guy right here. Control J for a duplicate. And let's clean up his stains because he's obviously a very messy eater. There we go. And one more. Excellent. Looking good. Anything else you want to clean up if you notice it's not perfect, you can try just clicking a couple more times. And anywhere you click, it'll start to fill in. So if I want to clean that up just a little bit, now it looks a lot better right there. Perfect. All right, so on these remaining files right here, for the rest of these files on 12 through 16, I want you to remove the subjects using any of the methods I just showed you. Practice all of them. Use the spot healing brush, use the lasso tool, and the content aware, and the generative AI. Practice all of them as you practice on the rest of these. So on this one, I want you to remove this guy. Take this guy off the mountain. On the next one, number 13, I want you to remove the left and the right person. Leave the one in the center. But take this person out and take this person out. Number 14, I want you to remove these people from the background. So just leave the soccer ball in the grass, but take all these background people out using those tools as well. Same thing with number 15. Let's just leave these two and let's get rid of these people right here. Use any of those tools that I just showed you throughout this lesson to get rid of these 4 people in the background. So we just focus on these 2. And then for the last one, same thing, get rid of this strange person in the photo. So we just have the lovely sign. Get rid of this guy, whoever he is, and make him go away because he doesn't belong in the photo. Okay, so that's how you use content aware. As I mentioned, do the ones I just showed you throughout the lesson, and then photos, images 12 through 16, you're on your own to use the tools freely and get rid of those subjects. Don't forget to duplicate your backgrounds on all of them so you don't cause any permanent change to the original file. And then as always, take screenshots of everything that you edited today and attach them to today's assignment. And then you will be all good. Okay? Have fun. Let me know if you have any questions.